Uncharacteristically hot weather leading to droughts across the UK, leading the UK media to ask, why would Bukayo Saka do that? This is the ArsenalVision post-match podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Bukayo Saka causing drought throughout the UK. Also responsible for market fluctuations leading to higher interest rates and some deteriorating investment returns. It's just, you do have to wonder at what point we're going to address the Saka question and all the chaos that he has brought to our society. I kid, but only a little bit. Okay, so today we're going to do some questions, your questions. We asked in the Discord and we asked on Twitter. I know a platform many of you have abandoned, by the way, for questions. We'll find a better way to get questions that are more encompassing of everybody on whatever platform you may be on. But that would require planning. And the planning intern was sacked. So we'll have to find another way to do that. So we've got some questions for you there. Euro Daily is going to kick off this week. Now, I want to explain what Euro Daily means. It's a podcast about the Euros that takes place daily. It will be on the Football Vision feed. We will put some of it on this feed, of course, but what I'd really love for you to do is support Phil Costa and his great work. So maybe a good time to click over onto the Football Vision feed. If you're more of a U.S. soccer fan, we do have Founding Football, which is running right now a pre-produced series talking to some of the key figures in the development of the game in the U.S., going all the way back to the beginning, talking to U.S. women's national team figures and TV journalists and U.S. men's national team players, and just kind of covering that journey as we lead up to the Olympics and then ultimately to a World Cup here. So I think Kent has done a brilliant job with that. If you want to subscribe to it, it'd be great. We put a couple episodes on our feed here as well if you want to listen to that. So a couple things to get you through a period with very little Arsenal if you want the good stuff, the transfer stuff. Giant Gooner Matt did a data review of Sesko. Clive and I did a video review of Sesko just from March to May when he had his breakout. Tim did an oral history of a really interesting period of Arsenal in the 1950s that you can listen to over on Patreon. So we keep churning out stuff to keep you connected to the club that you love and keep us all connected together. And this week, I believe, we will announce the details of the LA event coming in July. And it is, I think, in terms of where we're having it and what it's going to involve, one of the more unique things we've done. So I'm excited about that. That took 2 minutes and 29 seconds, so you can't be too mad at me. I am now able to introduce, this is where you can be mad at me, Paul. You can find him on Twitter at PausMyPants. Hello, Paul.
Woohoo!
He wasn't paying attention till he heard his intro. And here with me now is Clive. You can find us on Twitter at ClivePFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
All right, gentlemen. We are going to dive into some questions. But there were a lot of them about this topic. So rather than asking an individual one, we'll do just sort of a generalized overview of this one. And then with the remaining 3 minutes of the pod, we'll answer one more question. Clive, so Bukayo Saka was a sub in England's not great performance and defeat to Iceland. I will say something that will anger probably everybody who supports England on this podcast, which is I think they'll probably win the Euros. I do. I think they're an excellent team. I think their time is now. I think France and Portugal look good too, but I have England as probably doing it this time. I think TM is coming home TM. But so I don't know that I think this performance matters, but that is beside the point because it was enough to lead the British media to use the image of Bukayo Saka on back pages everywhere. I thought some of it was just a natural choice. There was a really cute picture of Bukayo laying on the ground looking crestfallen. There was another cute picture of Bukayo throwing a paper airplane, and it lended itself to some, I think, clever headlines. There were also some less clever headlines, like putting Bukayo's picture next to the headline Black Ice, which, at some point you can't really, you kind of lose credibility in saying that it's accidental or unintended. So I think, we've been down this road before, whether it was with Sterling or Rashford, where seem to be going through something with Saka similarly, where he now is the face of a defeat that he hardly participated in, having just come back from injury. And Darren Lewis, I know, tweeted out his thoughts on it. I think more notably, Ian Wright shared his thoughts on it. And Clive, I think, given that we got a lot of questions about it, and he is our star boy, he is our academy player, he is our talisman and a player we love and adore, and knowing what he went through in the wake of his penalty miss the last time this tournament came around, I just think it's a really interesting topic to get your thoughts on. So in terms of the coverage that we saw in the wake of that game, what are you thinking about why that is and what the relevance of that might be?
Yeah, it's a massive topic, right? And it's one that you can't win on almost, because there's always a bit of what about this, what about that, and what about this. So let me just give you a little bit from my perspective. And for me, the England game, the issues that we've seen with Sterling, Rashford, and Saka, it's not new. There was John Barnes. This started with in my lifetime. John Barnes was the guy, and he ended up being booed by England fans because of some of the things that are written about him. So none of this is new, right? So let me give you an insight into maybe my youth. There's a point in your youth when your mum or your dad will come up to you and they'll speak to you, and they give what black families call the talk. And the talk is, mate, when you get into school, when you get into a job, you're going to have to try a little bit harder to get the same recognition. You're going to have to try a little bit harder for promotions, etc. It's just about steeling you for the world that we live in, right? The world that we live in. When you get stopped by a policeman, you're going to have to be even more careful, because it could end up in a more serious place. These are just the things that black families tell their children to help them navigate through the world, right? And so the world that we live in, right? So, and it's something it's always stuck with me as a young man. So when I see these things, what I realize is, as a young man, is that basically the line for failure is a bit harsher, right? So when you have successes, you may not get the sun shining on you, but when you have failures, you can't afford too many, because a light will very much shine on you. So when I see these headlines, I don't get surprised, because all that these media establishments are doing are re-establishing biases into our lives that we all get fed on a day-to-day basis. And so they're just restating them without even realizing what they're doing. You know, I say that, and some people say, yes, glad they know exactly what they're doing. Well, I don't know if they know what they're doing. All I know is this is not new. This is just restating biases. And those biases have far-reaching impacts. Those biases are read by people who are employers, who are university teachers, who are people in authority that dictate opportunities for people of colour. And that's where it becomes far more concerning. Bukayo Saka has a wonderful family, wonderful agents, a great support network. He's got 40 million Arsenal fans that have got his back. 10 million of them understand all the data around his performances. So we've got him covered. It's the people that don't have Bukayo Saka's elite 1% talent that want to go out into the world and get their opportunities. This is when it becomes a little bit more serious. It becomes more serious. And I'm not somebody, I've managed to do okay in life. I haven't got a chip on my shoulder. I've just got my head up and have a look around, and I can see for some people haven't been fortunate, and they need these opportunities. They need to work through. They need to get past. And I can hear people saying, no, but Clive, it's just a picture on the back of a paper. You have to understand, if black means bad, that's not good for people who are trying to be good and do things right. They have an extra hurdle for which to get over. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but I just feel it's bigger than the picture. And what's happening now in the media, and guys, you have to keep me honest, is that now we're pitting players against each other. So you've got a young star black player in Bukayo Saka being pitted against a Foden, being pitted against a Cole Palmer, who are equally talented football players. And what do? We dive in to protect them. It creates division. These headlines, they create division, and there's so much division in the world that needs to change, and that disappoints me. You know what sort of person I am. That really disappoints me. I don't want to be fighting with Chelsea fans over if their player is good enough or not. We're smart enough in this podcast to realise that they're not even the same player. You see what I mean? So and so he's much more like Cole Palmer's more like Odegaard, he's like Saka. It doesn't matter. The papers have got pitted against each other, and some of these conversations are not healthy. They're not positive. So where I started from, for me, I think it's slightly bigger, these messages, than people realise, and how it affects people in many different ways. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. I think one of the things you said that really struck a chord with me, because I hadn't thought about it this way, if the image of failure for England is Bukayo Saka, if every time something goes wrong with the England team, this black player is put on all the back pages, then it reinforces a subconscious idea of failure and negativity being associated by the black players. But when it goes well, it's Foden, it's Kane, it's Southgate, that you just create a duality where the positive is reflected in the white players and the negative is reflected in the black players. And I want to be clear, like, not everything is race, of course. I mean, the picture of Bukayo laying on the ground is a good picture. The picture of him throwing the plane does set itself up well for like plane analogies. And, tabloids can't resist, a pun, right? That's just their favorite thing. That's like Paul at the live show saying he was getting Kai on his own supply. Sometimes you gotta go with the pun when it's available.
And
but
Paul
I do
is
think
brilliant at puns, by the way. Yeah, absolutely.
he does have them in that crazy notebook that looks like the ravings of a lunatic. If you haven't seen the notebook, check out the behind the scenes Ali Pally video. You can see his notebook in the scribblings. But then when you aggregate it, and every tabloid has gone with those pictures, and one has said black ice, and a Canadian broadcaster has a pre-canned joke about Saka's going to limp off and then he'll be fine the next game as a thing. Like in the aggregate, it creates a feeling, it creates an environment that we saw, I think, to be honest, worse with Sterling. Like, I don't think Saka has faced what like a Sterling has, where they dug into, he bought a house for his mom. And then the very next day you'd see like Wayne Rooney saying like, Wayne Rooney lovingly supports his family with a house. It was more naked in that period. But I do think that in aggregate, these things can lead to what you're talking about, Clive.
Yeah, well, Sterling had to stand up and say what was going on, and people really riled against it. Because how dare you question what we do? So he had to sacrifice himself a bit. And by the way, the England manager kept picking him. He kept picking him when everyone was telling him not to. How dare he? How dare he? And he ended up being the best player in the Euros last time we went there. And he's not in the team now. But he had to maybe suffer it for other players like Saka to follow. But the thing is with Saka is he's spotless, isn't he? I mean, I saw a Highland documentary, and they were talking about him as a young player. And when he was just starting to get good, and he was on the bus up to the FA Youth Cup game, and then Saka went, they go, what's up, B, what's up, mate? Because they were worried about him, make sure he was all right for the game. And he said, I forgot my Bible. And I'm thinking, because he likes to read his Bible before he goes to sleep, before he goes into a game. You're dealing with that level of character. So what are they going to do to get him? What are they going to do to get him? We're going to have to try hard, aren't they? They're going to have to try hard to get him. And maybe we're seeing a reaction that actually warms my heart a little bit, if I'm honest with you. That people are looking at this. This conversation would not have happened in Sterling's time. Not the same way. And that was only a few years ago. Marcus Rashford, whatever you think of him, he got stick for trying to feed children who couldn't afford to be fed.
Yeah.
And so I know there are more things to that story, but I'm trying to say to you is in a strange way, this situation is now being called out by people like yourself and you, Elliot and Paul. And I know what, mate, Ian Wright wrote a tweet last week, and I wrote a response to him. I said to him, you know what, Ian, it had to be you to say this. You know what? Some guy come back to me and said, Clive, he said, no, it needs to be someone like me that says these things. And he was a white guy. I thought, mate, you're spot on. It doesn't have to be me. It needs to be more people to stand up and say, this is not right. This is not right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a black person. It needs to be people that care about people.
Yeah, and a couple things. First of all, anytime we touch on a topic like this, there will be people who come back and say, how dare you say that Britain is a racist society, or how dare you, like, just to be clear.
I haven't mentioned the word racist once. Just want to make that clear. I mean, very careful
I understand.
what I said.
I think the important point here is simply to, first of all, recognize that, like, these kinds of biases, sometimes you might call them implicit bias, for example, subconscious biases, they make an impact on the society in which we live, and being aware of them and shining a light on them is a positive thing. And it doesn't necessarily need to lead to an accusation of any individual or any society being a certain way, even if we know that there are those issues in the society. The other thing is just that, like, I think we are in a troubling time, Paul, because tribalism has gotten so intense in football and in politics and things like that, that our ability to come together on topics that should transcend that are often limited by it. And I do think there is a danger in invoking these issues where they don't belong, because it takes the emphasis off the really important issues. So, for example, if someone says, I think Cole Palmer is better than Bukayo Saka, an Arsenal fan responding, well, that's obviously because you're a racist. Like, that doesn't help. That doesn't shine a light on anything important in society. That's using racism as a cudgel to win a tribal football argument. When what we want to do is acknowledge these biases where they exist, shine a light on them, and try to make everybody just a little more aware of the way that we interact. Now, when someone on Twitter who will remain nameless says, I just think Cole Palmer has more game intelligence than Bukayo Saka. Okay, now you're getting into a place where it's like, I don't know if you're a racist, mate. I don't know if it's just your implicit bias or if you're really that dumb, but that's the kind of comment that I think we all recognize is at best a dog whistle and at worst overt. And so I think, Paul, it's incumbent upon us, to Clive's point, to point to these back pages, to point to the way he's handled and some of the players that have gone before him have been handled, and just try to create an environment where we don't lean into these biases, and also not invoke this in every player debate and discussion to the point where we make it a triviality. Because I think the worst thing we can do is be so quick to raise this issue that we actually give people the out to be like, oh, well, you always say that. Let's keep it for the important moments where it matters and not inject it into tribal football discussions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Look, it's a very difficult topic to gauge, especially like so many people who follow Arsenal, who follow these clubs, are not even based in the UK. So now they're trying to make these judgments as to, they know they think something's wrong, but how wrong is it and where does it come from? A lot of what you're talking about there is the social media accelerant in all of this. And it's like, how do you even look at that or treat that? Is the guy 16? Is he 17? Is he 14? Depressingly, he's probably 40. But anyway, you don't know who this guy is who says the dumb thing. But what you do know is that, it's so easy to beat up on the media, but probably for a good reason. This is not their first rodeo. They know when they do this stuff. Why did they do it? Could be all sorts of reasons, including, but it's not as simple as, they had subconscious, like they have super conscious bias here. They know what's going to happen the next day. They know how this will be received, perceived in society. Why do they do it? Maybe that's even more depressing, because it apparently sells. Because if doing this stuff hurt them, they do less of it. And that's where it gets really depressing, because there's apparently it's a lot commercially more attractive to go with black ice than to find a more nuanced, like, should you show a picture of Bukayo Saka? Sure, as long as it's balanced with other players and it's not like, they all know what's coming out the next morning. They all know that it's going to be, they're going to have Bukayo Saka and somebody else is going to have Bukayo. So they better have the best slamming picture, or whatever the word is, the best kind of takey picture on Bukayo Saka, the face of that performance. And like talk about the scars of Raheem Sterling. They may not consider them the scars of Raheem Sterling, but they were in those wars. They caused those wars on the media side of things. And so it is very hard to know for I, exactly what to say and where to come in on this. But you look at people like Lewis Hamilton, Ian Wright, the Clives of this world, even though there's only one Clive. And that tells you your instinct is right here, right? This is just so bad.
Yeah. And I think, maybe the phrase you're looking for is rage bait, right? Like what's unfortunate in the digital age is that we have learned more than ever that anger drives clicks more than any other kind of content and engagement. And there are organizations that have figured out how to monetize that to the max. And it may not be that their motives are driven by bias or racism or whatever word you choose, but that they recognize that leaning into that approach will create the commercial outcome, the economic, pecuniary outcome that they seek, right? And so I can't remember who said it, but show me the incentives, I'll show you the behavior, essentially. the incentives are all messed up. And like, it's funny. I think one of the things that makes this podcast unique, right, is that we've been very fortunate to launch Patreon and have it be successful and have it help fund our ability to grow this pod. But if you look at Patreon, for example, that only works if we put out good quality content, right? That's the only way it works. No one's going to go over to Patreon if the content's clicky or baity or whatever you want to call it. So our incentives are, guys, we got to keep our quality of our content high because that's what keeps our community together and that's what helps us thrive. Unfortunately, a lot of major mainstream media and social media has abdicated a responsibility to create quality because their business model is around clicks and ad revenue. And so this is all getting a little inside baseball, as they'd say in this country, a little in the weeds, but it is the idea that I don't know how to disentangle what is actually race-based animus in someone's heart versus what is commercially driven rage bait. And those things get intertwined. It doesn't mean we shouldn't call it out. And I think for myself, Clive, to sort of wrap on this, I try to use a barometer for myself of if I can explain an opinion or a comment or a behavior just through basic ignorance or stupidity or tribal football, then I'll use that, right? I won't immediately go to it's a race-based instigation of some kind. But when you aggregate behavior, like how the media covered Bukayo Saka, when you look at, because for the people that want to stick their head in the sand, we can think back to the last Euros and the penalty miss, and we can think back to players who post something on Instagram after they've had a bad performance for their team, black players, and they have to turn off the replies or turn off their socials because they get monkey emojis, banana emojis, right? They get the N-word, they get racial hatred in their replies. This stuff happens. I don't know how you tackle it other than to simply shine a light on it. Light is often the best disinfectant. And so to your point, Clive, if the media thinks they'll get away with this little subtle bias that creates a negative impact, then it's our responsibility, all of us as football fans and human beings, to shine a light on it, to say it's not acceptable, and hopefully flip the incentives commercially so that it stops being profitable to stoke these kinds of divisions. But we may be a long way from that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we may be. And I say we get fed things and we all read things, and the papers that thrive the most do this stuff, right? I'm afraid, and so it works, right? It sells, and I'm not going to mention them, but people know who they are in England anyway, so it sells. But like I say, this conversation on a Friday night friendly versus Iceland is happening now. 3 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. So. There is, I'm a positive person. I like to see the positive in people. It's good. There's some good that's come out of this. And maybe people are sick and tired of people getting scapegoat for whatever reason that is, because that's an easy way to sell papers, etc. So I think people are getting tired of it. From my own side of things, we touched on Saka before on the podcast, a while back. And biases do have impact. Biases have impact to how people see the black athlete. Biases have impact how referees see the black athlete. And it has impact to how we analyse football players. It does. I have my own biases. I struggle to see number 10s. I do. I've said it here many times. But I say, I struggle to see that player, mate. I struggle to see him. I don't see him. So I let Tim take it, because Tim can see those players easier than me. You know what I mean? We all have things. We have blind spots. We have biases. We have things that affect how we communicate, how we see other people. And that's where I am with this. I use the word bias. You use the word, is it inherent bias? Elliot, you use the word?
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias,
subconscious bias.
And that's the thing that happens. That's the thing that's been restated and validated, and it's seeping into our minds, and it affects how we interact with each other on a day-to-day basis. It does, I'm afraid.
When we talked about it a year ago, I remember saying they're picking on the wrong guy when they pick on Bukayo Saka. He's I think Sterling's a decent guy, a good guy, but there's a vibe about Saka. You're just picking on the wrong guy here. He shouldn't have to be perfect. He shouldn't have to be spotless. But they're picking on the wrong guy, and I think the light is going to swing back on them.
Yeah, Paul, I think you've just made Clive's point beautifully, right? Which is that you need to be nicer, better, kinder, superior at the game to avoid this kind of criticism than the average player would need to be. And that's a shame. And that shouldn't have to be. You should be able to just be your average footballer and not face something like this. I want to start to shift gears here. Look, this is one of those things, right, where I don't know if that's a good listen for people. I don't know if that's what people want to listen to on a podcast. I do think, to Clive's point, it's an issue that's in the public conversation. Ian Wright, as we mentioned, tweeted about it. It's one that I think would be a little odd not to address. Whether we've addressed it effectively or in the right period of time is for each person to consider. But to the extent that we all participate, all of us, I don't just mean our podcast, I mean all of us as people, participate in shining a light on these kinds of biases and trying to eliminate them, want to make sure that we do that where possible. Staying on the Bukayo Saka topic, though, and maybe staying on this topic, although I don't know, I don't think so in this instance. Bukayo Saka not named player of the season, Clive. Odegaard named player of the season, with Rice and Saliba second and third. Saka not even one of the top three in the fan voting. I think a lot of people were either outraged about this or said it totally made sense. I have a really, really strong theory on this that I'm going to explain in a moment. For me, I could have understood Odegaard or Saka being picked. I think even Saliba, I would have had Rice just behind. I think my rank order would have been Saka, Odegaard, 1, 2, one of them. Saliba, then Rice. I think that would have been my rank order. It is a great thing for Arsenal that we have so many players who had such good seasons who are so talented that you can defend selecting any of these players. And in fact, Odegaard won it with just 33% of the vote, right? I mean, this is a club that Lacazette was our player of the season not that long ago. So it was thin gruel. So how do you react to the idea that Saka wasn't in the top three, the actual rankings as they came out, and what it says about us? Because I think actually it is an overwhelmingly positive thing in its own way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Elliot. I mean, I think Saka's won it. Has he won it last 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
I think he has won it last 2 years.
No, Odegaard won it last year, didn't he?
Did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought so. Saka's won it for England 2 years running, I want to say.
He has,
yes.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why I was getting mixed up.
Interesting and relevant to our conversation.
It doesn't. That's a fan vote, by the way. So basically, it doesn't worry me, to be honest, mate. To be honest, I think I think we are very fortunate to have these players. I think Tim always says when we get a new player signed, he always wins the first player of the month in August, whenever it is. And Rice has come in and done fantastically well and has really transformed how we see parts of our team. And so that's going to happen. Saliba as well. He's just perfect, isn't he? Right. So plays every game, literally every minute of every game. And Odegaard, well, I watched a comp of him the other day, playing for Norway against Denmark, and that's him in the off season, just trotting around in a friendly. I mean, we're very lucky with all four of them, aren't we? Really, they are stellar players, and so people are allowed to choose who they want to choose, and that's where I see it. For me, you ask me now, when I go and sit in my seat, and I think, okay, we've got a big game today, and with my football head on, I'm thinking, which player are they most trying to stop? And I'm afraid that for me, it will be Bukayo Saka. Which is the first player, the first shot, first cross, who has the most goal contributions. But hey, look, we're nerds, right? So we know all this stuff, right? So like, not everyone thinks like us, and that's absolutely fine.
I'm going to give you my maths lesson here in a minute, but Paul, your thoughts on how this voting comes out and how you might have thought about it?
Yeah, like, the problem for Saka is he's competing against himself, and he was great last year too. There's a bit of stock rising in this, right? I do actually think Odegaard came up a level when you look at him across the season. Just his impact, his leadership, his energy. Look, there's much more pop to him this year, even if you thought he was good last year. And then you got a pop with Havertz, Rice, whoever was in the top three. Just because, wow, that's a big upgrade. And Saka, he was great last year too. Why isn't he even greater? It takes a little subtlety, a little kind of studying the game to determine the difference between Saka last year and Saka this year. Everybody thinks he's great, but he was also great last year is his problem.
So, first of all, I mean, I think it is worth pointing out both Odegaard and Saka had down periods in the first half of the season. Odegaard when he had his hip injury, I want to say, and Saka had the Achilles. he went 11 games scoring once. So, I think those periods do count. I will also point out that, at 10 non-penalty goals, this is an important part of Paul's point. I think people may not have voted for Saka, not because his season wasn't great, but because there's the feeling he can do more. He's almost being punished for the fact that people think he can be even better than this. But I want to give you a maths lesson. You guys ready for this? Because I think you'll find this quite interesting. This is where I think having a lot of good players cost Saka what he otherwise would have won. I'm going to give you the example of ranked choice voting. Just bear with me for a second. So let's say Paul ranked his top 4 for player of the season: Saliba, Saka, Rice, Odegaard. And Clive ranked his Rice, Saka, Odegaard, Saliba. And Tim ranked his Odegaard, Saka, Saliba, and Rice. And I ranked mine Odegaard, Saka, Saliba, and Rice. Saka would have no first place votes, meaning he would come in last technically in the way this is done, right? Odegaard would win. He'd be player of the season. Saliba would be second. Rice would be third because they each got 1 vote for player of the season. But actually, if you averaged their position in the ranks, Saka would far and away win. He'd be the top in terms of his average rank. And so I know that's a nerdy thing, but it's the point that if you give it to Rice and I give it to Odegaard and Tim gives it to Odegaard and Paul gives it to Saliba, but we all had Saka as the guy we would have picked second, we're actually saying Saka's probably across the universe of people the top, but that's just not how this voting is done. So for the people who are like, well, okay, maybe he doesn't win, but how does he not finish in the top 3? It's because of what I just pointed out. I think it is more statistical anomaly than a reflection of people not rating him. So I just think what we should see is that we are blessed to have all this talent, that all of this talent is relatively even. I cannot emphasize enough the fact that Odegaard got this with 33% of the vote, I think shows you there were probably Ben White votes, as there should have been. Right? There were probably Kai Havertz votes. I guarantee you there were Gabriel Magalhaes votes. So when that happens, you get weird statistical anomalies. Paul, last thought on this?
Well, I want to come back at your statistical thing, which is it does tell you not a lot of people picked Saka as their first choice.
Well, I mean, let's say 5% of people picked him as their first choice and 95% picked him as his second choice. It reflects that he, on average, is thought of the most highly.
Yeah.
But other people had other, Odegaard, Rice, and Saliba more number 1 votes, essentially. Yeah. So anyway, I just think that's sort of an interesting statistical anomaly. Now, we are going to get into the questions portion of this mailbag episode just halfway through it. To be fair, this conversation was an amalgam of a lot of questions we got. So people wanted to hear about these things. I didn't pick out a single question because, there were so many questions to consider. So I just think that's kind of it. Okay, so let's do this. Let's tell you about NordVPN, because this is one of my favorite things to tell you about, just in terms of our sponsorship things, because it's one I really use and a lot of people use, and I hear the most request for it. Essentially, NordVPN solves the problem of how do I see that content that's geo-locked? How do I see that content that I can't access when I'm away from my geography? You can sign up for streaming services in other countries where they're cheaper. Did you know that? Just by using a VPN. How cool is that? Literally sign up for it in Australia, sign up for it in Italy, whatever it is, where it's cheaper by using a VPN, whatever the case may be. But more importantly, when I'm over in London and I want to watch the 3:00 kickoffs, I remember we were doing a Patreon get-together event at a pub on Upper Street, and United were playing Fulham, and we wanted to watch it, but it was a 3 p.m. kickoff. I VPN'd back to the U.S., put the game on, and we all watched Alex Iwobi beat Erik ten Hag's United, and it was a fun time had by all, right? NordVPN allows you to just put an app on your device. You click, you tell it what region you want to be in when you're on social, and they're like, can you believe this goal? And you click on it, and it's not available in your area. It is now. Okay. Plus they have threat protection. So do it, because we have an awesome promo from them. So our code, just because you're going to need that, is ArsenalVision. So you're going to want to go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. You will get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 months for free. And it's completely risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can go take advantage of the discount of the 4 months free, of the 30-day money-back guarantee. Go to nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision. That's nordvpn.com/ArsenalVision Club. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
Nailed it. Okay, Clive, we got a lot of questions about transfers, as you'd imagine, but sales are on people's minds, as you can also imagine. And it is sort of interesting to think about, how we could sell or how we might sell. I saw that I think Newcastle is in for James Trafford now.
Yeah.
After, the stunning season that he just had. And so, there's been a lot of questions about whether we are bad at selling is not what I want to say, but whether we've made some missteps or mistakes in terms of how we sell and how we give people contracts. So Soda Gunner on Discord says, at what point do we consider the Eddie and Reese extensions mishits or even possibly mistakes? I'm going to add the Ramsdale extension into that too. So the Eddie, Reese, and Ramsdale extension / new contracts. At what point do we consider those mishits or maybe mistakes, or do you have a different perspective on that?
Yeah, I do a little bit.
Well, I'd love
regarding, to hear. I think it's all about asset protection. You can decide based on your thoughts of the players if you think they're worth the money. But in the market that they are in, they're worth the money. And it could affect some of the sales. It may not. It's to be proven. I think we are moving into an financial era, which is brand new for us, really, because we're finally now embracing their PSR rules properly, and there's threats there to what could happen to you. So now people are really having to be careful. They're having to be perfect, right? And so the market won't really move until post-June. You might see some announcements late in June, but the PSR period ends the end of the month. Then you're going to start to see people spending their money in the new window, right? So basing their losses in their accounts, what they can do. So this is different, right? By now, you've already seen things moving. So our thoughts on the transfer window is completely different to what it was previously. And that may set a new price, but maybe that's what we should be doing. We should be setting a new price. I always quote the Caicedo thing. Caicedo, when we first were interested in him, 55 million. I remember seeing it, 55 million. Within a few weeks later, literally a few weeks later, that price had doubled. How has that happened? How is that healthy? How is that possible? You often hear me say 3 good games and you're another 25 million on top. That's literally what is happening. We are hyping players to that point. 3 bad games, we can't sell them. Look at their wages. We can't sell them. Ramsdale made an example. Look at his wages. A year ago, the most valuable goalkeeper in the world. He loses his place. A goal goes past his near post in the England game. We can't sell him. Look at his money. We have to look beyond that. People will get back to their level when they're allowed to play. They will get back to their level, and they will find their level. So historically, Arsenal have not been great sellers. And there's one other angle I want to talk about. None of these guys want to strengthen us. None of these guys want to give us their money so we can reinvest it and buy more urine timbers and make Havertz come back. And they know they don't want to give us money. Why are they going to give us money? They'd rather go to someone else who they don't see as a threat. Why are Newcastle going to buy Kieran Tierney off us? Because they don't want that. They see us more of a direct rival. They go and buy a kid from Newcastle and wait 3 years for him in Lewis Hall and wait for him. That's a Dan Ashworth investment, by the way. And wait for him. And they don't give us money. Ramsdale, they probably could do with Ramsdale because Nick Pope's got a problem with his shoulders. They could probably do with him. They may end up buying a goalkeeper who's not as good, not even close to being as good, rather than give Arsenal the money that we can then use to be stronger and stay away from them. That's happening a lot in this league. And in the end, we have to decide what's our level. Now, we need to create a selling identity. And I like what Arsenal are doing, Ramsdale. No, this is the price. He's mid-20s, England goalkeeper. And that's the price. And so let's see how much we can hold ourselves. We have to create a selling identity. When Chelsea just want 30 million for Brozier, no one flinches. Oh, that's Chelsea, isn't it? Well, why can't we do that? You know, that was Eddie's paid for England. Why can't he get the 30 million? We're thinking, Eddie's 20 million, maybe 25, because we know him so well. But in the market, he should be on a similar level. So it's a very complex discussion, Elliot, but that's where I am with it.
These are complex. I think the Broja example versus Eddie is a good example, though, of why I would regard those contracts as mistakes personally. You're right. In some instances, extending a contract can give you leverage and protect asset value. In some cases, if it doesn't go well for the player, it can make them harder to sell. And a good example is Broja is 2 years younger than Eddie. So, it's not night and day, but it's different. But he's 10 million pounds less than Eddie in wage cost if you acquire his contract, if you keep him on the same money. If you have to raise them on money, it's even harder. And so what I would say is
per year, or
no, in total compensation.
Okay.
But so if you just take that off and you say, okay, so that 10 million, this is why I call transfer fees wage theft, because the 10 million that should go to Broja, the player, just goes to the club, right? So if you say he's 30 and Eddie's 20, why is Eddie 20 and he's 30? Because Eddie's making 10 million more over the life of the contract, right? So it's money that should go in the player's pocket that instead goes in the club's pocket, and I consider it wage theft, but that's how football transfers work. I think to create a culture of selling, what Arsenal need to be willing to do is sell when it's slightly uncomfortable. Sell Reece Nelson when we're not sure we don't need him, but there's a market. Sell Eddie when we're not sure we're ready to move on, but there's a market. And this summer, we gave Ramsdale a new contract in the summer when we were making a move that was probably going to mean we no longer had a future for Ramsdale. I think it's tough because if you sell players when it's uncomfortable, it could burn you. But we sold Willock on the back of a really hot spell at Newcastle when a lot of people are like, maybe we should give him another shot at Arsenal. It was uncomfortable. It proved right. We sold Iwobi when he was still a key part of our squad. It was uncomfortable, but it was right. And so, Clive, I think part of a culture of selling, you're right, is not letting clubs just, take the piss. But I also think part of it is selling when it's a little uncomfortable. Otherwise, you wind up in a Tierney situation like we are now, where I would expect that to be contract cancellation and a handshake. I don't think anyone's going to want to give us money for Kieran Tierney. He makes 120 grand a week. He just played 14 starts for Sociedad, 6 starts for us the season before, and he's going to be 28 this season. So, what do you think about part of the culture of selling being willing to sell when it's slightly uncomfortable, as opposed to going to the very, very, very moment when you no longer need that player and everybody else knows you no longer need that player,
Oh, yeah, you do make me laugh, Elliot. I wouldn't quite frame Kieran Tierney about to trot off with Scotland to the Euros as a handshake away.
Well, let me ask you: do you think we'll get money for him? I think we'll have to cancel his contract to move him. I don't think anyone will take that contract.
I hear Aston Villa are sniffing around him actually, and Celtic as well. So yeah, who knows what could happen there? And I think with these conversations, and you are right, what you said, by the way, about selling. By the way, we're having this conversation about Gabriel Jesus at the moment, right? Let's be honest, that's exactly the conversation we should be having. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Do we do it if there's an offer, a market opportunity, right? So I also think there are other things that we're not aware of. We're just guys. We're not aware of what's in a contract. Say, for example, Aaron Ramsdale, for example. He's got 120 grand a week potentially. We don't know the bonus structure. We don't know anything about that. We also know he's got a boot deal with Adidas. That boot deal for Adidas is probably X. I don't know what it is. But maybe it's X plus Y if he plays 25 games a season. Right? Do you see what I mean? And there are other endorsements he has if he's visible and active and playing. Right? So he may say, actually, Newcastle, I'm on 120 base. I'll take 100. But as long as you can guarantee me I'm going to play. If I play, I'll get so much more money from my endorsements that I have with various other products. Do you see what I mean? I think there are things that we're just not aware of. Playing is the most important thing. Playing. Because when you're playing, you are getting to the level. When you're at the level, you can create your own wealth. If you're not at the level, you are hostage of the game. And the game will kick you out. Playing is everything. So when a player goes into a room, those mahogany room to negotiate his next move, it's a start point for that negotiation. It's not the end point. It's the start point. And I like what we've done with our academy kids because we've created a start point for them which secures their future. They've done right by us. We're going to do right by you. And I really like that. I really like that. And I think people need to look at it slightly differently.
Fair enough. So can I just hit you with something, though, that I think is eye-opening?
Absolutely.
That hopefully that I think will allow people to understand why this gets so difficult. Kieran Tierney. Celtic is a name I've heard thrown around. 10 million for Celtic will pay 10 million and take on Kieran Tierney. They will not do that, in my
They
estimation.
can't do that.
They can't
do
do
the
it.
wages.
So do you want to know Celtic's record signing fee? What do you think the biggest signing fee Celtic ever paid was?
I'd guess it's about 5 or 6
What
million.
currency do they use?
Well, we'll put it in pounds. They paid 13 million pounds for Diogo Jota. That was their record signing fee when he was 22. Guess who their top earner is right now? It's Callum McGregor, comfortably the highest paid player at the club with a weekly salary of £37,000. Kieran Tierney earns roughly 3 times what their highest earner earns right now. And at £10 million would be their second most expensive transfer ever. So I think we have to appreciate that outside of the Premier League, selling players for the fees we think make sense is very, very difficult. If you don't have a market for a player in the Premier League, it gets really hard. So, Paul, let me ask it to you this way. I definitely don't want to shut you out of this conversation, by the way. I think this is an important one because
I have a lot to say.
Yeah, selling is a direction we have to go. But so let me ask what Corey at CoreyJT_AFC on Twitter said, which is with James Trafford being linked at this stage with a £15 million move to Newcastle, are we left with, ironically, a Tierney-esque situation in regards to Ramsdale? Maybe the two best options would be for Ramsdale to either stay and be our cup goalkeeper or leave on loan. He's under contract still, obviously, and rehabilitate his value. What do you think of that? You'll be surprised to know I have an opinion on that, but this is not the Elliot opinion show. This is the Clive and Paul opinion show, presumably. What do you think of
that? Yeah, superficially. I mean, it may end up very equivalent in the outcome, but it's totally different. Like, people will look at Ramsdale and they'll either choose to see the season he just had or the seasons he had before that and put it down to not a great situation he was put in by the club. That would, if I were another club, like, it'd dial a bit off his price. But if I'm another club, that I think I'm buying the Ramsdale that when he's loved, when he's appreciated, you can see what this guy can do. And if I had a nominal, I'm going to make up a number here. Let's assume he was on good wages. And let's assume you thought he was 30 million keeper if his wages were, I'll say good in terms of not too high, like reasonable wages. He's probably a 25, 30 million keeper in a normal year. But I'm going to want a discount there because he sucked. And Arsenal has to accept he sucked last year. There's a market for Aaron Ramsdale for absolute certainty. The problem is his wages. The problem is the league is not linear. So the big guys, the big 4, 5, 6 have lots of money to splash around. Then it suddenly drops off. And then don't even talk about clubs in other leagues who only look at the Premier League as a market that they can finally get some revenge on when they buy your player for nothing. And it's payback time. They'll get some Italian or some Portuguese or some Brazilian, or they'll get a guy who's maybe not quite as good yet, but he's young and he's on the way up. Like, it just falls off. It's not linear. And I think we could all agree we're not good at selling. Now, the reasons it's for that is because, A, we haven't done a lot of it. We've done a lot of giving away, a lot of loans, we haven't had a prized asset. When we've had prized assets, we didn't have the buying part of it. Like, what should we have done with Eddie looking back? We should have sold him. And the reason we didn't sell him was because we didn't have somebody else to bring in behind him. So buying begets selling, begets wages, begets reputation, begets, probably it's the opposite of begets. But anyway, and how good we are. We're now consistently basically the best team in the league. Just, everybody would now accept we're the best team in the league, slightly dialed back. Across performances, we might actually be the best team in the league. We're just not quite winning it yet. So that's come up. We're going to get the opportunity to learn to buy and sell all the moving parts, all the how you do it, having the options lined up because you might actually sell things. But it's a process. And like, we can all agree we're not very good at selling. Why? I certainly think wages are a system. systemic problem that we have. We must have
yeah.
done it for good reason, right? And the reason is we wanted stability. And we've benefited from that stability. Now we got to harness that and turn it into selling players because we're now really, really good and we got players to sell. Each player is a little different, but they're all on high wages, which gave us stability. And the problem to the point is the big clubs could afford it, but they're not going to help us out. The medium and smaller, it's not linear. It does not fall off in terms of what players will gradually, as you go down the league. Suddenly there's a huge drop and the wages hurt.
Yeah, and that's why we have to be cautious about being too critical. Whatever we've done in terms of squad building has made us the best or thereabouts team in the Premier League and one of the best teams in Europe. So like we have built a squad that is the best or thereabouts team in Premier League. We're now being critical at the margins, right? I guarantee you this is where we suffer a lot from knowing our club better than other clubs. Because in our mind, we're like, Chelsea don't have any dead weight, and United and Liverpool and City, they only have good players and they haven't wasted any contracts and they haven't screwed. I mean, what are you talking about? Look at Calvin Phillips at City. Look at Matthias Nunez at City. You know, look at Cole Palmer. He doesn't play for City, does he? He plays for Chelsea, right? They've screwed stuff up. Liverpool have screwed stuff up. You know, there are wages they can't get off their books. There are players they committed to that they shouldn't have. God knows.
Some of City's signings, I mean, like, it's the gold standard. You look at Calvin Phillips, you look at Nunez.
Matthias Nunez, yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
they got 2, 3, 4 real stinkers, but hey.
Vardiol was one that was headed that way, and then obviously he had a good finish to the season, but God knows they paid enough for him. My point is simply that no club is run at 100% efficiency. So if you're like, oh, we're not 100% efficient, well, you should strive for it, but you can't expect to get there. And I do think you created a point, Paul, that we are prisoner to. We are prisoner to the two-tier market. If we decide to give a player an Arsenal wage, we are going to struggle to move that player outside of the big 6 or 7. It's that simple. A basic entry-level Arsenal wage is $100,000 a week. Celtic's biggest wage is $37,000 a week. And they're not alone on the continent. So we have this very, very weird structural system that, by the way, might need to get fixed, which is simply once a big club puts a player on their kind of wage, they essentially cannot move that player to a smaller club because that wage will no longer fit that wage bill. So it is a two-tier system. We are prisoner to it. I want to move on from this in a bit, though, Clive, because this question, I think, it hit home for me. Locked and Loaded on Twitter, LNL_Nicolo said, is it just me? Or are there just not that many exciting players like there used to be? 10 to 15 years ago, I had a list as long as the Nile River on players I would love at Arsenal. Now I don't even fancy any of the forwards on display, and I'm talking left wing, right wing, or striker. I got to be honest, Clive, I'm kind of in this boat. I think about 5-10 years ago, and I was dreaming of so many players. Oh, we get this guy. And then like now I look around and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess Sesko would be good. Osimhen might be all right. Neto's kind of injury. Like, is it that we're more exposed to the downside of players and their mystique is gone? Are there fewer exciting attacking players now? Like, why does it feel like there isn't this universe of dynamic, extraordinary, exciting players that we could and should sign?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That really brings out some good thoughts in my mind. I'm going to take you back a bit, right? I always look forward in my analysis, but I'm going to take you back to Brazil '82. I can remember that team. And the reason why, when they came into the World Cup, I tell you now, Elliot, I did not know one single player in that team. And when I saw them on TV versus Scotland in that first game, I was like, oh my God, what is this? What is this football? You know, now, trust me, I know a player, if he's just played under sixes now, I've got his name in my phone somewhere. Do you see what I mean? We are so informed now with data and information that I think it's taken away some of the excitement and the mystique. You know? I can remember us talking about Sesko in January, and I said, yeah, maybe we should bring Sesko into the scouting. And we sort of did it, and we did it alongside a couple of other players. Then the rumours got a bit better and thought, hold on a minute, this might happen. It might not happen, by the way. It might happen. And now, I don't think it's a single clip I've not seen. I've seen them all. I have seen them all. I watched him live in 3 games. And so the excitement is almost already gone. And I may have gone out the other way and said, actually, I've seen a few things I don't really like anymore. You know what I mean? And we're so informed. Is it over-analysis that's doing this? Is there too much analysis? Is there too much information that's take away the excitement? And this is probably why I tend to live in the future in my stuff I do with you guys. I try to project forward, which is risky analysis, but it's exciting because it's almost virgin land, and it's almost like we sometimes look backwards with so much detail. It's risking taking away some of the fun about football, which is not knowing what's going to happen next and not knowing who we're going to get next. That's the stuff that's really exciting, the stuff that we don't know.
I think that's why I try really, really hard to maintain whatever aspect of stupidity I can retain. Be the idiot that I want to see in the world. And that way, football is always surprising and unique to me. I've got a couple here that I like, but I'll ask you this one, Paul, because I think both Zinchenko and Kivior, I think, have been mooted as outgoings this summer. I don't know that they would be. I think there's an interesting issue with Zinchenko in that if we think Timber's going to be our left back and we think Tomiyasu is a utility left back, I don't know that keeping a Zinchenko to be third choice left back is a role that he'll want to play or we need him to play. And Kivior gives you the versatility of being a third choice left back, but also a backup center back. So that seems more valuable. But MD at MD147429996 on Twitter asks, can Zinni be moved into midfield now that Timber is back, into a Saka type role? I know it's the whole Vermaelen can play DM thing, but Zinchenko does play midfield for his country. And I know that international football is different than club football, but this isn't just a pie in the sky idea. Line breaking passes, he leads our team, or second in our team. Progressive passes, he leads our team. I think people's biggest complaint with Zinchenko is a little looseness and lack of focus in the defensive areas. And when he vacates left back spot, he makes us vulnerable. Okay, so just take him out of that spot altogether. If Kivior makes sense because he could be left back and center back, does Zinchenko make sense as an option at left back, but also a left 8 or 6-ish kind of option, given he has some of the profile to do that? How do you think about that kind of transition for him?
So I think you bin Kivior and you keep Zinchenko. The reason being, Zinchenko is a special kind of player. He's a special tool in the toolbox. The challenge we have faced last season, and we're going to face more this season and more the season after that, is that teams are sitting deeper and deeper. They assume when they come to the Emirates at this point that they're going to get pounded. So why even try? Let's just put all 11 players in our own defensive penalty area. You need your Zinchenko because he has a very particular set of skills. You talked about, would he be happy with that? I mean, I don't know. He probably will, because that's what he is. He knows he's not a left back. He knows he's not a midfielder with one role for any top team, whereas he can play, we talk about finishers, we talk about starters, but there's middlers, right? There are players who will come in for a section of a game and do something to find passes to unlock a defense that's sitting deep. And we don't have anybody who does what Zinchenko does. And he's not for every game, and he's not a starter. But if you're Arteta, you want that guy on the bench in a way that you don't necessarily want Kivior if you've got a relatively fit Tomiyasu and you've got you got Timber and you got your options there. And like, I'm always a bit harsh on Kivior, but he's never been played in his actual position. But I don't get the sense that Arsenal see him as the number 3 centre back going forward. So, like, I don't know that his position will ever be his position. He's kind of got that, had a shot at left back. It was okay. It wasn't brilliant. It's not his natural position. Zinchenko on his day is a brilliant player. We just haven't had the complementary yin and yang of having a Tomiyasu available at the same time as Zinchenko, a Timber and a Zinchenko, so you can pick and choose which games and how long you keep him in for. But if we're all up in attacking their box, we don't need 4 defenders. You don't need a left back. You got Gabriel, you got Saliba. You cheat with a bit of Rice and White on the other side, interplaying to make sure that's covered. So many games are not about playing Real Madrid. They're about playing Bournemouth. And how do you unpick that defense? And you want Zinchenko. I think that scenario will explain a lot of what we do in the summer in terms of the kinds of players we buy, solving that particular problem, which is going to get more extreme next season.
Good one. Clive, I got a different question for you here that I actually hadn't thought about in a long time, but I think it's an interesting question from Leeds Gunner in the Discord. The common consensus when Edu joined the club hierarchy was that he would give us a distinct advantage in signing South American players, especially in Brazil. In Gabriel Martinelli, he succeeded marvelously. However, it seems that we can't compete with Chelsea and Real Madrid for talents like Kendry Paez, Endrick. He didn't write Estevao, but is that how you say his name? Estevao?
Yeah, the one that's going
respectively,
to...
yeah. Chelsea. Why is this? What are they doing that we're not in discovering and capturing these players? I think this is an interesting question. You want to have an advantage in certain regions, right? Arsene famously made the advantage in the French market. So what do you think about us not being able to push the accelerator on our advantage in that region?
Yeah, I mean, again, thanks to Twitter, there's some people out there that know these players at Palmeiras and like Ben Mattison, for example. And basically, I know about these players now. I would have never known about them before. And they're 16. And then you think, well, why aren't Arsenal getting them? We've got Edu. And then you then go off into the world of what are these players being told? What are they being offered? What sort of incentives are going? Maybe ask these players, if there are no secrets to me in front of my iPad, there are no secrets to Eddie. I trust you that. And so the fact we've not gone there, maybe it's about how we approach these deals, right? And I don't want to cast aspersions, but there are aspersions that are out there, right, about these deals and how things actually happen. And so, yeah, I would like to see more of this happen because what Real Madrid are doing with their buying strategy is very, very intelligent. They spend where they need to. They see superstar talent. And they spend early when they need to at a number they can manage. And then they develop those players. And, we spoke last week, Elliot, about, players we'd like to sign, etc. And I think the words to you that there's a part of me thinks we need to get a little bit younger and actually go younger and build our own stars. And that's where my eyes are at the moment. And back to the question about Brazil, I don't know why. I can only assume and guess why. But there are players of talent coming out of that region. But there are also players that don't make it, that don't make the transition. And maybe it comes back to what Chelsea can do, which we maybe can't do yet, is have a multi-club model where we can bring people into Europe, but stage their development. And we don't have that multi-club model. Man City do. We've got players playing in Spain right now that are doing very, very well. They're bringing a young player over called, I think his name is Savio. He's a lefty playing off the right. Elliot, he's brilliant. He's played a year at Girona. He's coming over. He's brilliant, mate. He's absolutely brilliant. They've had him in their system a while, and they've been nurturing him in their football group. We can't do that, And this is what we're competing against. We can't do that, and it's a challenge for us, right? And that's why there's so much off the field going on at the moment, in court as we actually speak today, going on about trying to put some financial restraints around people that can do literally anything they want.
Yeah. Interesting one to track. Alexis Forever on the Discord, Paul, says, Saka and Odegaard at the 8s with some mix of Jesus, Martinelli, Trossard, and Kai across the front. Why not?
Say it again?
Saka and Odegaard at the 8s.
Yeah.
He says Saka right 8, Odegaard left 8. I think you just put Saka left 8 and keep Odegaard the right 8. But either way, Saka and Odegaard at the 8s with some mix of Jesus, Martinelli, Trossard, and Kai across the front. Why not? I mean, I do think Saka could move inside if he wanted to. So why not move him inside and reconfigure the front line? It also seems that wide forward is the easiest market right now to find something versus strikers. So,
okay.
What do you think? Why not move Saka interior?
Because he's brilliant on the right, and that's how we build our attack. That's how we can. Correct. It's not just how we attack, and that he's. Hang on, it's not just that.
But
it's
that
we need the gears from that side. We need to pull in the defense to Saka And like, we're trying to fix a problem, and the problem's on the left-hand side. Just fix the left-hand side, and we're fucking golden. Could Saka be a great left 8? Yeah. Could he be a great right 8? Yeah. He could probably be a great almost anything in the attacking half of the pitch. But he's absolutely... what you want to do is have enough variety in his area of the pitch with White, with Odegaard, with other players, with runners, with a Sesko type, with all these different options, so that the defense never knows what's coming at them next in the next game. They're not totally set up for it. They're not totally baked in. And so Saka and Odegaard and White can make merry on the right-hand side and kill them from the left-hand side with the fact that you've pulled everybody onto Saka and Odegaard. Oh my God, they're shutting down Saka. Yeah, but you've left open the left-hand side, so let's kill them on the left-hand side. That's the answer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that, so I don't think we need to move on from that. Griffs_fly_together on the Discord, and I think we'll wrap up here. Clive says, if Jesus stays, does that squash the need for another wide forward, assuming we get another center forward, whether it's Sesko or someone more established, then use the extra money to go heavy in midfield and left back? I don't think we need to go big at left back personally, but what do you think? If Jesus stays, I was running the numbers in my head, and I'm like, Jesus, Trossard, Saka, Martinelli, Kai, I don't think you can bring in a wide forward and a center forward and keep the group we have without winding up in one of these situations again where you have players getting literally no minutes. So if Jesus stays, do we maybe skip the wide forward thing and just go center forward, or vice versa? What do you think?
I'm generally not sure. I swear on this one. I look at us, and where do I see our biggest weakness? The biggest weakness is in the players that have played the most minutes. So look at Saliba, look at Rice, look at Saka, look at Odegaard, and ask yourself a question: do we have players behind them of the sufficient quality? Right. So for me, I've seen Jesus play right. He did against City, did fine, does fine from the left, and he's out training already. Maybe he feels good, and we can judge him then. The manager seems to like him. That's the most important thing. I do think we need one more forward in this group. We have to change our offensive face, otherwise we are going to be analysed off the park. So we need to bring something else in to allow us to change the dynamic of the game when we make substitutions, particularly in the biggest games. As Paul said earlier, not every game is Real Madrid, right? There are plenty of other games out there. But those are the games we remember, the big ones. Those are the games that shape us. Those are the games that shape our transfer strategy. It's not the Bournemouths at home, for example. They're not going to shape anything because we know we can beat them, and we beat them, right? So it's Bayern Munich away we have to work out, and for me, for that we need more pace and we need more power to deal with them. Simple.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what we do this summer. I mean, there were some questions that we won't get to, but sort of about, will next season be enjoyable? Because the expectations have gotten so high that usually you can define happiness or enjoyment as the delta between expectation and reality. When your reality is far better than your expectation, you tend to be happy. When your reality is below your expectation, even if it's still really high, you tend to be unhappy. And I think that our expectations are so sky high now that it will be difficult. But that's where you want to be, right? You want to be at the point where you're demanding a lot of your club because the club has gotten to a point where you can expect to demand a lot of them, if that makes sense. So we'll see where that leads us. I think we'll knock it on the head there. Just a nice light conversation about implicit bias in society for half an hour and a few fun transfer questions. We will be doing Euros stuff, so that's coming. We'll be doing transfer stuff all this week. Again, as always, I mean, if you're on the Patreon, I promise you will get all of the transfer nonsense you need. We'll try to do a bunch of it here as well too, and we'll get the announcement out. By the way, for the LA event, we're going to announce those tickets and that stuff for everybody all at once. So you'll hear about that wherever you are. So no need to be a certain place to find out about that. You'll hear about it, and then a lot more to come. So just really enjoying going through this summer with everybody, trying to take it a little bit easy, but also put out between 1 and 2 episodes every 6 to 12 hours. So that's the plan here. Paul's on Twitter at Pause My Pants. Thanks, Pause.
Woohoo!
Clive's on Twitter at Clive PFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much.
My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We love you so much, so much. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer window nil.